Okay, so there was a couple of things that I want to talk about today on stream, and this is mainly going to be two things. It is number one, me clarifying one of the rules on hardcore that I've seen in a couple of my comments recently that I feel like people have misunderstood on the website, and also we're going to be talking more about hardcore servers and the rules that should probably be on hardcore servers. This is going to be my opinion on the subject. I'll try to touch on the pros and cons of both sides of the story here. But obviously, I'm a person, I have some opinions here. It will be a little bit opinionated, but once again, trying to portray the pros and cons of both sides. First of all though, let's talk about this one. So let's talk about this right here. A couple of days ago, I made a video on the best add-ons for Classic WoW on hardcore, and on that video I got a couple of comments. I've tried to just make them as anonymous as possible. I am not here to try to call anyone out, it's more like, I feel like a lot of players, this is just 3 comments, but I didn't get too many comments on that video, and one of the add-ons that I talked about in the video was a logout skipping add-on. I'm using this add-on myself in the game right now. You just click show logout skips, it shows you exactly where to log out and where to go when you do a logout skip, and some players were saying that logout skipping is against the rules of hardcore. So I wanted to investigate that, see if it is against the rules, and as someone who's been playing hardcore for quite a bit myself, I thought it was totally allowed, right? I definitely thought it was allowed, and it turns out it actually is. And there's one rule on the website that gets people confused about this, and maybe players are reading the rule wrong, or it's just one person reading the rules wrong, and then they start spreading the information around, and it just spreads through word of mouth. So I simply messaged Cargos. I feel like if you're playing hardcore, you probably know who Cargos is, so here's his reply. He's one of the creators, if not the creator, of the hardcore challenge, by the way, just in case. So here we go. Logout skipping is all G, which based on my knowledge of English slang means that it's all good. Means it's okay. Let's talk about the one rule though that might get people confused here. No using the auto unstuck feature to teleport to major cities. The auto unstuck feature is a feature you have in-game or on the website where you can actually just click a button, unstuck, then go to your major city. That is something completely different than using a logout skip. A logout skip is when you log out on an object inside a cave, or you can even use a jumping macro to log out in the air in a cave, and it teleports you to a graveyard. Once again, referring back to the add-on in this video, it's add-on number 10 at the end of that video. It shows you exactly where you can log out and where it teleports you to. So if I log out inside this cave right here at the Bracken Wall village, I can log out inside this cave on an object and get teleported to this exact graveyard. It's probably not something you want to use very often for hardcore. You have to know exactly where you're going and why you're going there, and you also need to know that it's a safe area. So for example, as an alliance player, I probably want to try to stay away from this place right here, and like Grayson just said in chat, you can use it in Undercity. So anything that is under the ground, it doesn't have to be a cave, but any building under the ground. So Undercity, for example, is a whole city that is under the ground, and if I just hide and show the logout skips here, you can log out in Undercity in the actual city, and then you get teleported to the graveyard, which is at the entrance to Undercity. This one right here can save you a lot of time when you're playing hardcore. So once again, just to reiterate, using logout skipping is allowed. It's not against the rules. Drayson as well, hardcore mod, he's in the chat right now, also says it's not against the rules. And like I just said, Cargos said not against the rules. That is number 1. That was just a super quick one, just wanted to get that out of the way, just to clarify some rules on hardcore itself. If you want to use logout skipping, there we go, you can, right? Nothing against it. You can save some time, it increases your efficiency while playing. It's probably not something you want to use unless you're familiar with it, but if you know how to use it correctly, it can be a huge time saver. So especially for official hardcore servers, if you want to level up fast, it can definitely be useful. well, and worth knowing about. Next up though, let's talk about official hardcore servers and the possible rules that should probably be on these servers. And for this, we're going to take a look at two sides of the story. So first of all, you have the current rules we have on hardcore, and then you have less rules. I want to highlight some of the positives and the negative aspects that I can think about at the same time here. So let's begin with less rules, and I've made some infographics right here. So having less rules in hardcore would make it more open and inviting. What do I mean by this? Well, the world itself is more open and invites more players to play. The more rules you have in place, the less players will be attracted to that server, because, well, it's more rules, right? For example, if you don't allow grouping, now suddenly anyone who wants to group does not want to come there. And if you don't allow trading, then suddenly anyone who wants to trade does not want to go there. Simply having less rules makes it more open. It is appealing to more players, and the more appealing it is to more players, the more potential players will play on that server, for better or worse. Also, one more reason to have less rules on official hardcore servers is that the game itself is based around grouping and trading. What do I mean by this? Well, this one is basically up to you to, I guess, tackle. It's up for discussion, but the way I look at it, the game itself, Classic WoW, is based on cooperation between players. From the moment you start the game, you will get quests thrown at you, which makes you want to group up with other people. It is not meant to be a solo experience based on those quests. For example, if you just go right now to Elven Forest, for example, I'm just using that one because that is the zone that I'm personally the most familiar with, you will get a quest for Hogger, which most people are grouping up for, and when you go to Red Ridge, you also have some quests in Red Ridge at the Stonewatch Keep, which is elite quests, and it's super difficult to solo. I think it's possible to solo, but it's super difficult. You also have some dungeon quests like Sulfarak, for example. If you go to Sulfarak, you will not be able to do the Troll Temper quest by only doing one reset of the dungeon. In some cases, if you're super lucky on RNG, all 5 people in your group can do the quest, but personally, when we did the run, only 2, I think, actually 2 got the quest done, and the 3rd person waited for respawns. So by waiting for respawns in the dungeon, 3 out of 5 got their quest complete, so 2 out of 5 had to abandon the quest. I'm sadly one of them, so I didn't get to do that one, based on only having 1 reset per dungeon, right? And that is the current rule we have, so 1 reason to allow multiple resets would be to complete your quest. You also have Uldaman, a dungeon if I can go over here super quickly. You also have Uldaman. Now Uldaman you can theoretically run by only doing 1 reset if you farm all the materials you need and the quests on the outside. You can basically get a shattered necklace, which most people probably get inside the dungeon, but you can farm it from the elite outside the dungeon itself. But most people probably want to do 2 runs of Uldaman to do all their quests, even though it is theoretically possible by doing it in 1 run. So there's a bunch of dungeon quests and dungeons you want to run multiple instances of. Actually, there's 2 that I can think about, but there might be even more, plus grouping in the open world also wants you to cooperate with other players. You also have professions. For example, if you have enchanting, you probably want to have enchanting coupled with tailoring, right? But you also need someone to make you some enchanting, what are they called? The wands or the rods, right? They're made through blacksmithing. And if you have blacksmithing, you probably want to couple blacksmithing with mining. So if you have blacksmithing and enchanting to make yourself the rods you need, it feels very awkward because now you need someone to supply you with mining ores. And if you have mining and blacksmithing, but you also want to have enchanting, in this case you would have to go for mining, then blacksmithing, then drop mining, and then get enchanting. It just feels very awkward to have to do everything yourself instead of trading with other players, using the auction house or using the mailbox. Having all these rules makes it feels like it's against the game itself, in my opinion right here. Next up is the social aspect. By having all these rules in place, like first of all, you can't group, you can't trade, you can't use the auction house, you can't use the mailbox. It is very restrictive on the social aspect. That being said, I have the guild chat open right now. You have the social aspect of being able to talk to people, but you don't have the social aspect of feeling like it's a multiplayer game. You feel like you're playing a single player game, but you're able to talk to other players while you're actually playing. To me, the social aspect is a huge part why I personally love Classic WoW, and also grouping up with people in the open world is something that I personally absolutely love. When I'm doing hardcore right now, there's a bunch of quests that I'm personally skipping because they're either too difficult or they are too risky to do solo. So this makes me play the game in a different way, which is challenging, it's fun, but personally I would love to see the option to play in a group. And in this case, you could probably just have the option to play in a group, but you can have some ways to implement the current rules we currently have on the hardcore service as well, which we'll talk about in just a second here. Next up though, having less rules allows you to play the way you want. For example, if I want to level up with questing, I can. If I want to do dungeon farming, I can. If I want to do dungeon cleaving, I can. If I want to level up duo, I can. Trio, I can. Solo, I still can. You can level up exactly the way you want. By having the rules we currently have on hardcore, you can't level up the way you want. You can't dungeon farm. It's against the rules. You can also not do 2 resets of the dungeon. It's against the rules. And you also have some very restrictive rules on both duo and trio leveling too. So there's a bunch of different rules that you have to abide to right here. I don't know where I can find all of them, they're probably on the website. But having less rules would make it so you can level and play the game exactly the way you want, which I personally feel like is what a MMORPG should be about. You should be able to play the game the way you want, and that is why MMORPGs typically include, like, you have leveling, you have PvE, PvP, you also have pet battling in retail, for example. You have so many ways to play the game that even if you don't enjoy PvP, you can still enjoy World of Warcraft. And even if you don't enjoy raiding, you can still enjoy World of Warcraft. It's based around having multiple ways to play the game. Now, that being said though, having less rules definitely makes the challenge easier. If there's a elite quest that I personally really want to do, if I have to do it solo, it will be more challenging, more risky, and some players might actually be skipping it, right? But if you can have the option to group up, do anything else, it makes the challenge easier. Also, if you can use the trading, auction house, and mailbox, you can now buy yourself items from the auction house. Now, that being said though, you have to have the gold for it, so it's not like you can start playing hardcore, buy yourself epics, buy yourself everything. You have to have the gold for it, and right now it's level 47. I'm a warlock, so I get my mount for free at level 40. I have 151 gold. This is not going to be able to buy you any epics pretty much, right? So even if you have the option to trade, it is not like you magically have all the gold in the world. On a brand new, fresh hardcore server, people have to get the world drops, you have to be able to buy them, and if you have a level 60 character in hardcore, on hardcore servers, and you want to make an alt and you want to buy yourself some BOEs for your alts, why shouldn't you be able to? You've already completed the challenge. If you want to give yourself an easier route on your second challenge when you're doing it again, why should you not be able to? It's kind of like, I don't know, you can probably use some real life examples here, but if you have become the richest man in the world once, it would be much easier to do it again, based on the knowledge you have, plus you can probably use some of the cash you already have to do that again. Or if you are the world's strongest man, you can use some of the strength to become there again. It's like, if you've done it once, you should have the option to give yourself some benefits on a second try. And why should it always be challenging? Shouldn't the game be more fun than challenging, after all? That being said though, let's talk about what could happen if we have more rules. There are some positive aspects here too, but I want to highlight a lot of negatives once again, because I think personally there should be less rules, and I'll talk about exactly why after we have talked about having more rules. So the current rules we have, aka the more rules side of things, It makes the game less open and inviting by narrowing down your actual gameplay. You can't farm dungeons, you can't do multiple resets, you can't just group up with anyone, you have to decide at the beginning if you want to be a solo, duo, or trio player, right? So it really makes the game itself less open, less inviting, more restrictive, and it's a forced single player experience. Referring back to what I just said, it's a multiplayer game, you have a social aspect, but you can't group with anyone in the open world, you can't do multiple resets of each dungeon, and for the most part, while you're playing hardcore, you're playing solo. Even if you do one run of every single dungeon, there's only so many dungeons you can do, and for the most part, you will be playing the game by yourself. It's also, because of that, less social. You will have less opportunity to group it with other people, even though, once again, the one social aspect you do have is guild chat, but you will not be able to group with people, you cannot trade with people, not mailbox people, and also not use the auction house. This also gives you only one way to play. You really only have one way to reach max level. I guess you have multiple, but once again, the point here is it makes it more restrictive. You're not able to farm dungeons, you're not able to do dungeon cleaving, not able to group in the open world. You can quest, you can grind mobs in the open world, you can do whatever, but it makes it more restrictive. And personally, I think like there should be multiple paths to max level, and they should all be like as rewarding. Now, all of that being said, it makes it more challenging, and after all, the current hardcore challenge is a challenge. There's a reason why people refer to it as the hardcore challenge. It's a two-word sentence. It's a hardcore challenge. It's a way to challenge yourself while you're leveling, which is usually the easiest part of Classic WoW, and now it's suddenly the most difficult part of Classic WoW, and a lot of people are failing this challenge. They want to participate in the challenge itself, and it's more of a challenge, which I think is a good way to play it, the way it's currently being played on Classic era. But when it comes to hardcore servers, I don't think it should be this challenging, right? Shouldn't really be a challenge, should be more of a fun way to play the game. You also have two more things that I really want to highlight, and that is that by having the current rules we have in place, by only being able to do one run of every single dungeon, not grouping in the open world, and having basically all the rules we currently have on hardcore, there's no boosting. Once again, referring back to the point, you can't just group with anyone, they have to be within the levels of the actual summoning stone, or the what is it called? Not summoning stone, but the meeting stone, right? They have to be within certain level ranges to do dungeons, so you can't get boosted. Right here you have the max level to enter for both Era and for Wrath, so you can't get boosted. And also there's no gold selling. There's no botting, no gold selling, no anything really, no mage boosting, no gold selling, no botting. All huge positives to the current rules we have in place. The whole point of hardcore is for it to be challenging though. I mean, yes, but the whole point of hardcore is not to only have less than 1% of the player base be max level. Like, you can make hardcore challenging while still allowing players to play the game and play it the way they prefer to play. Is what I'm trying to say here. Like, if I want to do hardcore, let's just say, like, Classic WoW is a social game. It always has been. It's referring back to the fact that it wants you to group up with people. It wants you to trade with people for professions, all of that part. You want to group up with other players, and it's also a game that players are playing with their real-life friends. So when I'm leveling, every now and then, if my friends are online at the same time as me, I want to level up with them, do some dungeons with them, do some quests with them, just have a fun play in the game. It should be challenging, but if you think that just by inviting one more person, it's suddenly not challenging whatsoever, you are wrong. And now we are going to get to the point of the video where I want to say, I want to put this in a place where everyone could be happy. So, let's just say we get hardcore servers with less rules, basically making it more open, more inviting, trading is allowed, grouping is allowed, everything is allowed, right? The only thing is that they are removing the ability to resurrect, but they implement achievements. We would have achievements with titles and mounts, or maybe even just titles, based on how you level. And hear me out. Because what people are saying right now, and what you are saying as well, Gunnar, is that leveling in hardcore should be a challenge. But why should it be challenging for everyone? What about you make the server as open as possible to attract as many people as possible by just removing the ability to resurrect? That way everyone, like at the end of the day, that is the one thing we can all agree on. We don't want to have the ability to resurrect, right? Hardcore means one life, death equals delete. That is the one point we have. And what if we can just have a server with that one rule in place, death equals delete, but you can level up exactly what you want, but you have achievements based on how you level up. The game itself is able to track what you're doing, so what if you level up to level 60 without ever grouping with anyone, you get a title and an achievement. Or if you level up to 60 without ever doing a dungeon, you also once again get a title and an achievement. And if you get to level 60 without ever buying a mount, you get a title and an achievement. If you get to level 60 by doing X, blah blah blah, you get an achievement, right? That way you can still boast about you completing a certain challenge in the game itself, while there being several players around you that can participate in the same challenge on various levels. The specific achievements in the add-on, yeah, exactly, we have achievements right now on hardcore, and you could implement the same achievements we currently have on hardcore on that server. You can track, like you can level up to level 60 in various ways. Like right here, complete the hardcore challenge without at any point completing a quest, no exceptions. You can basically copy the achievements we have right here and give you a title based on exactly how you level. That way, if people want to play hardcore the way we're currently doing, there can be an achievement for doing exactly that. And maybe doing that achievement gives you the title called Immortal or something, right? The hardcore enjoyer, the hardcore player, the Immortal. Every achievement gives you a title that you can use to show people I completed this challenge, but the server itself is still open to as many players as possible, and when it comes to opening up a server for Blizzard, they want to attract as many players as possible. It is not like you're trying to attract a very narrow amount of players. You're not trying to look for like this specific niche in this specific niche. You're trying to attract as many as possible, and by having the server itself be as open as possible, you are once again attracting as many as possible, while also giving rewards to the people that want to do the challenge itself, which could be achievements and titles. Why not have two types of choices, a semi-hardcore for the stuff on the left and a proper hardcore for the stuff on the right, because now you're splitting up the player base. Instead of splitting up the player base, let everyone play on the same server and just have achievements and titles for people doing specific challenges. Even right now, you will see like on comments regarding hardcore, there's a lot of people coming up with different ways to level or different ways to do things. Like something I saw today, for example, is what if you remove the ability to resurrect, but you allow using jumper cables from engineering? Personally, that's not something I would want, but based on someone leaving that comment, that is something that other players would want, right? A lot of people have different opinions on this, and even just the two opinions I talk about today, like the two sides, you have the left and the right. Like right here, you have the left and the right, and you probably have 537 opinions between the left and the right. But personally, they have to, like, when it comes to making a hardcore server, there should not be 537 different hardcore servers. There should be one hardcore server which appeals to as many as possible. It shouldn't be hardcore 1 then hardcore 2, or softcore 1 then hardcore and so on. They have to just make one hardcore server, make that server appeal to as many people as possible, and then if people want to complete the challenge in a very narrow way, like for example having all the rules we currently have, they can make a literal achievement and title for doing exactly that. Or we can just keep using the add-on that we're already using. And hey, that's basically it, and yeah, Vegeta, this is going to be a YouTube video. So if you watch this on YouTube, by the way, we're doing these discussions live on Twitch, so if you want to come and check us out, the link to both my Twitch and my Kick will be in the video description and the pinned comment. We're also doing a 24-hour stream when we get to 150 followers on Kick. Once again, the link will be down below. And let me know your thoughts in the comments as well if you have been watching it this far. yeah, just let me know in the comments down below. Achievement and title is a brilliant idea. Thank you. I think so. This is just something that I thought about a couple of days ago. We talked about this slightly yesterday, but I just wanted to actually like make my words proper here. Make my words proper, and that is the best sentence I have ever said in my life. But I wanted to just give it some more thought and try to word it properly in like a discussion format with myself, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and just smash that like button and subscribe for more videos. That's pretty much it though.